To my beautiful daughter, the first in our family to truly make something of herself. My mother's champagne glass caught the chandelier light as 200 guests applauded. I sat at table 14, the one near the kitchen doors, watching my sister Vanessa beam in her $40,000 Vera Wang gown. If you've ever been the invisible child at your own family celebration, stay with me. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from as I tell you how the next 6 minutes changed everything. My name is Margot Sinclair. I'm 34 years old. And according to my family, I was the disappointment who wasted her potential on computers. The wedding was at the Pemberton Estate in Connecticut, 200 acres of manicured gardens, a ballroom with 18th century crystal chandeliers, and a guest list that read like a who's who of New England old money. Vanessa had married Gregory Ashworth III, heir to a commercial real estate fortune. My mother, Diane, had spent 14 months planning this day. Every detail was curated for maximum impression. Except for me. I wasn't in the bridal party. I wasn't in the family photos. When the photographer lined up the Sinclair family on the grand staircase, my mother had placed her hand on my arm and whispered, "Maybe sit this one out, Margot. You know how you photograph." I did know. I photographed fine. But I wasn't Vanessa. I wasn't blonde, wasn't thin in the way my mother valued, wasn't married to anyone impressive. I had committed the unforgivable sin of being ordinary in a family that collected achievements like trophies. So I sat at table 14 with my mother's former co-workers. People she'd felt obligated to invite, but didn't want near the main celebration. I ate my salmon in silence. I clapped when appropriate. I watched my mother deliver her toast, and I didn't flinch. Not even when she said those words. The first in our family to truly make something of herself. I had a physics degree from MIT. I had a master's in computer science from Stanford. But none of that mattered because I'd used those degrees to build something my mother couldn't understand. Something she dismissed as playing with apps. The toast ended. Guests raised their glasses. My mother kissed Vanessa's cheek, and the room erupted in applause. That's when the photographer, a young woman named Bria who'd been documenting every moment, walked over to the head table with her iPad. I couldn't hear what she said, but I saw her show the screen to Vanessa. I saw my sister's face shift from confusion to disbelief. And then I heard it, a scream that silenced 200 people. "What?" Vanessa grabbed the iPad. Her eyes went wide. She looked up, scanning the room frantically, until her gaze locked on table 14. On me. Margot. Every head in the ballroom turned. My mother stood frozen, champagne still in hand. Gregory looked bewildered. And I just sat there, my water glass halfway to my lips, unsure what was happening. Vanessa stormed toward me, her Vera Wang train dragging across the marble floor. She shoved the iPad in my face. "Is this real? Is this real?" I looked at the screen. It was a Forbes article from 3 weeks ago. The headline read, "Margot Sinclair, the reclusive founder behind Nexus AI's $6.2 billion valuation." Beneath it was a photo of me, professional headshot, taken at my San Francisco office. The subheadline, "How a former family disappointment built the artificial intelligence platform now used by 40% of Fortune 500 companies." The room was silent. I could hear the ice settling in someone's glass. "You're a billionaire?" Vanessa's voice cracked. "You're a billionaire and you didn't tell us?" I set down my water glass. Carefully. Deliberately. "You didn't ask. Let me take you back 5 years. I was living in a 400-square-foot apartment in Palo Alto, working 18-hour days on an AI algorithm that could predict market trends with 97.3% accuracy. I had $12,000 in credit card debt, a laptop held together with electrical tape, and a family that had stopped inviting me to holidays. The breaking point came at Thanksgiving 2019. I'd flown home to Connecticut, spent $600 I didn't have on a last-minute ticket because my mother had called and said, "It would mean so much to have both my girls here." When I arrived, there was no place set for me at the table. "Oh, Margot." My mother had looked genuinely confused. "Vanessa said you weren't coming. We only have 12 chairs." I ate Thanksgiving dinner standing in the kitchen. My sister never apologized. My mother never questioned why Vanessa had lied. And when I tried to tell them about my company, about the algorithm that 3 venture capital firms were fighting to fund, my father, Richard, a man who believed technology was a phase, had laughed. "Sweetheart, leave the business stuff to people who understand it. Maybe focus on finding a husband before it's too late." I flew back to California the next morning. And I made a decision. I would never tell them. I would build my empire in silence, and they would never know what they had dismissed. Nexus AI launched 6 months later. Within a year, we had contracts with Goldman Sachs, McKinsey, and 4 major pharmaceutical companies. Within 3 years, our valuation hit $2 billion. Last quarter, after our Series E funding round, we were valued at $6.2 billion. I owned 34% of the company. Do the math. And through all of it, every milestone, every magazine cover, every interview request I declined, I never told my family. They didn't deserve to know. They had made it clear I wasn't worth a seat at their table. So I built my own table. And I built it bigger than they could ever imagine. Now Vanessa stood before me, mascara starting to run, her wedding day hijacked by a truth she'd never bothered to discover. $6 billion? She was shaking. You let me. You let us. You sat at table 14. You sat at table 14, and you're worth $6 billion. You put me at table 14, I said quietly. I just sat where I was told. My mother appeared at Vanessa's side. Her face was gray, champagne forgotten. Margot, this can't be right. You work with computers. You make apps. I built an artificial intelligence platform that processes 40 million data points per second, I said. I have 2,300 employees. I have offices in San Francisco, London, Singapore, and Dubai. But you're right, Mom. I do work with computers. The guests were murmuring now. I saw phones coming out. People Googling. The truth spreading through the room like a wave. My father pushed through the crowd. Richard Sinclair, retired investment banker. The man who'd told me to leave business to people who understood it. Margot. His voice was tight. We should discuss this privately. This is your sister's day. Don't make a scene. I'm not making a scene. I stood up slowly, smoothing my dress, a simple navy blue piece I'd bought at Nordstrom. I was eating my salmon. Your daughter is the one who screamed. This is insane. Vanessa was crying now. You've been lying to us for years. Years. And you show up to my wedding, you sit there like some martyr, and you don't say anything? What is wrong with you? I looked at her. At this woman who had excluded me from her bridal party, who had told my mother I wasn't coming to Thanksgiving, who had spent our entire childhood making sure I knew I was less than her. What's wrong with me? I repeated. Vanessa, you didn't invite me to be a bridesmaid. You seated me next to the kitchen. Mom just gave a toast saying you were the first daughter to make something of herself. And you're asking what's wrong with me? Gregory stepped forward, trying to manage the situation. Everyone, let's just calm down. This is clearly a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding. I picked up my clutch from the table. You all made your feelings very clear. For years. I just accepted it. I stopped trying to prove myself to people who had already decided I was worthless. My mother grabbed my arm. Margot, wait. Sweetheart, you have to understand. We didn't know. How could we have known? You never told us. You never asked. I removed her hand gently. Not once. In 5 years, not a single person in this family asked what I was building. What I was working on. If I was okay. You just assumed I was failing because that fit the story you'd already written. The ballroom was completely still. 200 guests bearing witness to a family reckoning that should have happened years ago. My father tried one more time. Margot, let's be reasonable. Your family. Whatever miscommunication happened, we can fix it. We should talk about this. Maybe there are opportunities, synergies, with my contacts in finance. I almost laughed. Almost. Dad, I've met with the CEOs of every major bank in the country. I've had dinner with Warren Buffett. I spoke at Davos last year. I don't need your contacts. The color drained from his face. Vanessa was sobbing openly now. This was supposed to be my day. My day. And you ruined it. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're... Vanessa. I cut her off, my voice calm. I didn't ruin your day. I sat at table 14 and ate salmon. A photographer Googled my name. That's it. If my existence ruins your day, that says more about you than me. I walked toward the exit. The crowd parted like water. I was almost at the door when my mother called out, one last desperate attempt. Margot, you can't just leave. We're your family. I stopped. Turned around. No, Mom. Family shows up. Family saves a seat at the table. Family asks how you're doing and actually listens to the answer. I looked at each of them, my father, rigid with shock, my mother, tears streaming, my sister, wedding day in ruins, Gregory, realizing his in-laws were more complicated than he'd thought. Your relatives. There's a difference. I walked out of the Pemberton Estate and into the cool Connecticut evening. My driver was waiting. I'd arranged for a car, knowing I wouldn't want to stay long. As I slid into the back seat, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Gregory. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Can we talk sometime? I didn't respond. I wasn't interested in apologies from people who only valued me once they knew my net worth. The next morning, my assistant forwarded me 43 interview requests about the billionaire at table 14. The story had gone viral. Someone at the wedding had recorded Vanessa's meltdown and posted it online. Within 48 hours, it had 12 million views. My mother called 17 times. I didn't answer. My father sent a long email about healing the family and exploring business opportunities together. I deleted it. Vanessa sent a text that simply said, "You owe me a new wedding." I laughed out loud at that one. 3 months later, I made my first public appearance since the wedding. A TED Talk about imposter syndrome and family expectations. I told a version of this story. The audience gave me a standing ovation. Afterward, a young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. "My family thinks I'm wasting my life too," she said. "They don't understand what I'm building. Sometimes I want to give up just to make them happy." I held her hands. "Build it anyway," I said. "Build it in silence. Build it in secret. And when it's done, you won't need their approval anymore. You'll have something better." "What's that?" "Proof. Not for them. For yourself." She hugged me. And I thought about table 14. About the salmon I'd eaten alone. About the toast that was meant to erase me. Sometimes the greatest success isn't about showing people they were wrong. It's about finally accepting that their opinion never mattered in the first place. If you're the invisible one in your family, if you're sitting at your own table 14 right now, keep building. Keep going. The people who dismiss you don't get to define your ceiling. Only you do. And someday, maybe, a photographer will Google your name too. Share your story in the comments. I want to hear from the table 14 survivors.